Hello, my friends, and welcome back to yet another episode of Watching the Watchers Live. My name is Robert Govea. I am a criminal defense attorney at the R&R Law Group located in the always beautiful and sunny Scottsdale, Arizona. And today, my friends, we're talking about Armageddon. That's right, our president said that we're all gonna die, and it's gonna happen very soon, probably. He didn't want to tell that to the American people. He did want to communicate that to some of the rich Democrats who are his donors. And so in our final segment, we'll start to go through that. We've got some interesting stuff to talk about there. We have him warning Armageddon's coming. We've got the United States buying $290 million of nuclear drugs, emergency preparation supplies. We're going to talk about a concept called the Zugzwang. I don't know how to say it, but we're going to talk about it. Very interesting concept because this Armageddon might be on the back of a nuclear explosion that wrecks the world. So we're going to talk about that. Biden came out and gave a very interesting speech where he's talking about two words, very important words that are a part of his policy, and only two, made in America. So we'll get into that. He said that out here today. We're going to talk about Biden running away along with other Democrats running away. We had a Jerry Nadler sighting today in Congress, which was fun. So we have him waddling around the stinking up the place. You can see there. I don't know how big that diaper's gotten, how many pounds are in there, but I don't know. It's got to be in at least 40 pounds at least. I don't know. So he's in Congress, waddling all over the place. We've got Katie Hobbs running away from Kari Lake. And we're going to talk about all of that when we get to Joe Biden. We have some serious criminal news to talk about because the FBI is on this raiding spree. They are literally all over the place. 10, 11 people now indicted. We're going to take a look at the indictment. These are pro-lifers. Look at these monsters, these terrorists here, these homeland violent extremists. You can see this guy clearly. He seems too happy, and and so he has to be indicted. They all got arrested and charged with crimes. We are going to take a look at that. You may have seen the Marc Houck case where he was sort of arrested for protesting at an agency. Very interesting stuff. Along with an indictment, the FBI showed up at somebody's house, and we'll go through all of that. We've got Representative Jim Jordan, who is responding, and along with Representative Chip Roy, they are all coming out and saying, hey, DOJ, we demand answers. We want to know exactly what's going on out of your department because it feels like you're going after certain political individuals who are just engaging in free speech, free association, and so on. So we're going to talk about all of that. And we have a quick update of Donald Trump. We're going to go through a couple updates. Nothing too big. I thought maybe we'd get a little bit more here before the show started. But Raymond Dearie, the special master, he came out with an update, and they have selected third-party vendors who are going to be monitoring and rummaging through all of the documents. We have a Supreme Court, little bit of an update, because we have Alina Abba, who is out here, and she is communicating that Trump is winning. It's like Trump's winning. We're not even worried about this. This is just something that is actually working out quite nicely for him. And so we'll take a look at Alina and others. And so as you can see, my friends, we have just a lot to get to today. And so my goodness, my friends, if you want to be a part of the show, the place to do that is over at watchingthewatchers.locals.com. They are chatting away over there. I see Paul Minot, who says it's pronounced nuke-you-lar. Nuke-you-lar is what Paul Minot says. I think that's debatable, Paul. Sort of like GIF is the incorrect version of GIF, according to you. Other people might say that's incorrect. Shout out to Bonnie. Shout out to Zach Nichols. We've got JC the Music Man's over there, along with many others who are chatting away. Shout out to everybody over there. Happy Friday, sharing the nuclear explosion Holocaust meme. Over on Rumble, we have Larry One with an Eric's House dono, which, by the way, that is tomorrow. The ericshouse.org annual fundraiser is taking place tomorrow. I have to get up bright and early and go set up all the gear, cameras, microphones, all that stuff over there at our office. We're going to be broadcasting from there, and it's going to be an amazing 4 hours We've got all these speakers lined up. My mother's speaking, my father's speaking, I'm speaking. We have a psychic medium speaking. We have health and wellness people speaking. We have all sorts of stuff speaking. And so any of the donos, any of the support, we got $3,000, amazing, that's been raised on YouTube so far. And we've got a lot more than that that's being donated at the link in the description below. I am matching all of it. And Larry One on Rumble sent in a dono, so we're matching that as well. Tomorrow's the big day. So if you're saving up some money to donate, I'd really, really love to see you there tomorrow, October 8th, ericshouse.org annual fundraiser. And the organization, of course, is to help people who have lost somebody to suicide, overdose, or tragic death. You know, sometimes people are just taken way too young from us for really tragic reasons, and people don't know what to do. And so Eric's House is dedicated to helping people recover from that. I've personally been touched by a loss like this, and so I'm very grateful for your support over there. Now, of course, I am a lawyer, R&R Law Group, quickly, 480-787-0394, Arizona criminal cases. That's what we do. We're dedicating the plug segment to Eric's House today, but of course, I am a lawyer. And we do appreciate it when you join our communities, wherever it is you want to do that, watchingthewatchers.locals.com or over on YouTube. All right, my friends. And now let's get this puppy queued up and get to some serious business here. Special Master Raymond Dearie made a new order in the Donald Trump case. Not too substantive, but pretty important, because we are now rummaging through all of the documents that were seized out of his residence. Recall that the FBI came out with about 15 plus boxes. They said it was about 200,000 pages of documents in total, or 200,000 pages of actual pages that make up a different amount of documents. So there's a whole bunch of materials they're rummaging through. And we have previously talked about the two different main categories that they're fighting about. One are the classified documents, the other are the non-classified documents. At this point, we have some serious debate about the 100 classified documents, because that is really, a portion of that is what is being discussed in the Court of Appeals at the 11th Circuit and also in the U.S. Supreme Court. You can see this is the docket from the United States Supreme Court back on October 4th. That's when Donald Trump submitted his appeal to the United States Supreme Court. And then next week on Tuesday, October 11th, Judge Clarence Thomas said that by 5 p.m., the government has to file their response. So there's an application to the Supreme Court, and depending on how this goes, right, they may send this back down in order of the 11th Circuit to do something differently, which then may go back to the district court where Judge Alina Abba presides, and it may come back down and implicate Raymond Dearie right here. And so there's a lot of layers to this thing, but while all of that is happening, Raymond Dearie is just going about business as usual. He's saying, all right, well, here's what I have to be doing while everything's being appealed. I got a bunch of stuff I got to rummage through. And if you remember, he has an obligation to update the court. Raymond Dearie is doing that. In a 3-page filing, we have a new special master order coming out of the West Palm Beach Division in Donald Trump versus United States of America. The special master, Raymond J. Dearie, he is the judge from the Eastern District of New York, very experienced, sat on FISA courts and done all sorts of different types of cases like this. And previously talking about this case, you may remember that the government said that they were done filtering through the documents. So it's literally like a filter. You've sort of got, a big bunch of stuff coming in at the top, a filter, and then anything that shouldn't go through gets separated out. The stuff that shouldn't go through in this case are attorney-client privileged materials, attorney work product doctrine, things that might be executively privileged and so on. Those all have to be filtered out. And now that that has been done, the special master is giving an update back to Judge Alina Abba. A lot of moving parts here, but hopefully I'm somewhat cohesive. The special master, writes Judge Dearie, is in receipt of the parties' joint log of disputes for the filter materials. Remember the spreadsheets that we were talking about? They finally completed them and they sent them back over to the special master. And boy, oh boy, we talked a lot about these spreadsheets, if you recall. They have to fill them out, put different categories on them, and the government has to fill them out, send them over to Trump, and he gets to dispute them. If he says row 31 is not what I think you say it is, then he's got to make that known. And once both sides take a look at the documents, then it goes back over to the special master. But in this case, we are only talking about the non-classified materials. It goes on. He says both of these logs of the disputes for the filter materials have been filed under seal. In light of the information included in the filter log and the cover letter, the undersigned, meaning me, the judge, I am respectfully directing the parties as follows. So the judge says, okay, you got your spreadsheet back to me. I've looked through it. Here's what I've got for you. Section 1. We have two different types of materials, filter A and filter C. They say, Trump is not raising an assertion of attorney-client privilege or attorney work product for any of the following documents. And this is quite a lot of them, right? So this is the moment if Trump wants to raise these privileges and to sort of use the filter to take these documents out, to go through the spreadsheet going, okay, row 37, row 41. How many rows are there? How many? 200,000. Okay, goes on and on and on. And he says, okay, these are not your business. You shouldn't look at these documents because they're privileged. But the judge said, oh, well, here's what we've got. Trump is not raising an assertion of privilege on any of this stuff. And there's sort of a lot of it. Filter A01 through A05, A017, 22, A25, 26, okay, so on and so forth. There's about 7, 8, 9, 10 bullet points here going all the way through A058. Now, we don't know what a lot of these numbers mean and what this stuff really entails, but on some of the prior property inventories that we've looked at, there were a lot of Time magazine covers. There was sort of, gift memorabilia and stuff like that. That wasn't all that consequential to national security, but it was all rummaged up, gathered up because the warrant was so overbroad and not particular that they could basically take whatever Judge Reinhardt said they wanted to. Raymond Dearie continues. He says, me, the special master, I've reviewed the filter log, everything that you've sent over, and I've confirmed that Trump is not asserting attorney-client privilege or attorney work product doctrine for the above listed documents, basically settling those documents. And pursuant to the parties' agreement, the privilege review team is now directed to furnish the above listed documents to the case team on or before the 10th. Okay, so all of those documents that were with the filter team, they go back over to the case team. And like, we have been talking about all these different teams, and this is the final disposition of the documents. They say, we think these were problematic. Turns out we showed them to Trump. Trump says they're not problematic. They go back towards the investigation. And the judge said that has to happen pretty soon, before October 10th. After the case team gets the documents, the case team and Trump now are to confer and to attempt to resolve or narrow the disputes about executive privilege. All right. Now, we've got a whole nother layer here, right? This is how this stuff gets complicated. And on previous shows here, we've talked about all the different layers: executive privilege, attorney privilege, work product doctrine, presidential records, documents that may have been declassified. There's a whole list of things that may implicate the documents. You can have one document that is classified, and that same document is also executively privileged, and that same document is also attorney-client privileged, right? So in order for the government to get those documents, they've got to beat all of the different levels. Not only does it have to be not attorney-client work product, but now after it goes back over to the case team, then they have to talk about executive privilege, and then they have to talk about the Presidential Records Act. It's all there. So you have to sort of beat every layer. Case team is going to get to those documents. They're going to send those back over to Trump, and they're going to try to resolve those disputes. So taking that same spreadsheet and then saying, this is why you can't have those documents now. No, it's not attorney-client privilege. It's now executive privilege. Or it's now a personal record that is outside the scope of the Presidential Records Act. On or before October 20th, 2022, so just about 13 days from now, the parties, Trump and the government, shall submit to the Special Master, Raymond Dearie, an updated log containing any disputes about the remaining documents. So now that we know that they're not attorney-client work product, they're going to do a second filter to see if there's anything else that might kick these documents out of the government's hands. Dearie says, as to the remaining filter A and C materials, the undersigned, meaning me, The stuff that may be challenged, they say, the undersigned here, Special Master, will endeavor to promptly issue a report making recommendations regarding Trump's assertions of attorney-client privilege or work product doctrine, which I will then submit to the court for review in accordance with the original order. So they've identified a whole bucket of stuff. They're saying here that there's a big portion of this that's not being challenged by Donald Trump's team. But the rest of it, the remainder, it's all being challenged. And so Special Master Dearie is now saying, I'm going to look through the objections and I'm going to make a final decision. Once I make that final decision, I will then send that over to Judge Eileen Cannon, who is the presiding judge over the district court case. All in one section. Now, not a lot of actual language there, but there's a lot of mechanics happening in that paragraph. As to filter B, they say that the parties jointly recommend that the special master not resolve disputes concerning the filter B materials, with one exception below. They say the parties also agree that the original filter B materials should be returned to plaintiff. And this is the stuff that's sort of not relevant, that's a little overbroad, that may be privileged, and they're just saying we're not going to really contest it. It's going back. Accordingly, the court directs the privilege review team to release the original filter B materials to the plaintiff, Trump, by October 10th. So there's two big buckets, bucket A, bucket B. We're fighting over bucket A, sort of. It's getting split into smaller buckets. Bucket B, all that stuff's going back over to Trump. Now, Raymond Dearie, the special master, he says, the parties disagree, quote, whether the special master should make a privilege determination with respect to the documents marked B in a letter in the privilege B materials. And he's referencing the cover letter. Now, this is an interesting thing because he continues. He says both parties are asking me to consider the privilege about this one document. But then he says, but Trump has made no assertion of privilege as to that document, and the parties agree the document is not privileged. This is a weird paragraph, because as you can see, it says the parties disagree about whether the special master should make a privilege determination. So it sounds like Trump's team wants the special master to look at B76 and make a determination about that. But they also agree that it's not privileged. Plaintiff has made no assertion of privilege, and they agree it's not privileged. And so he says, you're kind of asking me to do something that I can't do. He says, in the absence of any disagreement here, there is no designation dispute for me to adjudicate. If you want me to settle this, there has to be a legitimate dispute, but we don't see one here. He says, the privilege review team, give that copy back to the plaintiff along with the other filter B materials. Promptly return the original copy back over to Trump. So Raymond Dearie finishes. He says, finally, seeing no reason to insert the special master or the court into the chain of custody, the privilege review team is directed to maintain a control copy of filter B materials as it has throughout this litigation. So court doesn't want possession of it, and saying the government can maintain that filter B copy while the originals go back to Trump. The next status conference for all parties scheduled October 18th, 12 a.m. by phone, signed by Raymond Dearie out of Brooklyn, New York. And so the takeaway here is there's not much being contested. It sounds like there's a big bucket of these materials that Trump is really not fighting at all. Says, no attorney-client, no work product doctrine, no materials that would kick this bucket of documents out of the government's possession. There are obviously the things that are sort of filling in the gaps there. Those are the documents that they are claiming privilege over. But even if the government is looking through these for attorney-client work product filters, right, they have to do several additional layers. One is going to be executive privilege, and then we may very well see the presidential records privileges also being applied as well. So we're going to continue to see additional updates, a very kind of limited order, but important mechanics on how these documents are being shared back and forth. In order to facilitate the processing of all the Trump Mar-a-Lago documents, the government has decided to enlist the help of third-party vendors, third-party contractors. And if you recall, Judge Eileen Cannon demanded the government provide them with an update. This is that update. 2-page document filed by the U.S. Department of Justice, submitted October 5th, 2020. And this is going over to Raymond Dearie. It says, hey, dear judge, this is being written by the prosecutors who are investigating Trump. They say, hey, dear Judge Dearie, Special Master, consistent with Judge Cannon's order, the parties entered contracts with third-party vendors now to scan, process, host, and provide a review platform of the seized materials. Now, I don't know if this is going to encompass some of those 100 documents that were the ultra-national classified materials, because they don't tell us here. But presumably, there is some interface between all of those different documents. And so now you have, right, rather than having these materials just sitting in a storage room down at Trump's office, you now have the entire FBI rummaging through them, all the DOJ. They're also going out and getting third-party vendors to scan, process, host, provide a review platform for all the seized materials as they rummage through these overdue library books, which is what the government is making all this ado about, humbly speaking here. So that is the final order now. Remember, Judge Cannon said, you guys better get this stuff processed pretty quickly. And the government was having issues. Actually, Trump and his defense team were having issues because they couldn't find anybody who was going to be willing to facilitate this role for his defense. So the government came out and they said, well, that's okay. We'll find somebody who can handle all this stuff for you. So those are the two big filings that hit on the Trump docket. We also have the Supreme Court docket, which we had already talked about. Out of the Supreme Court next week, we'll get an application response submitted by the government prosecutors. And so once that hits, we'll take a look at that. But we've been wanting to hear from Trump's defense attorneys about the status of the case. Let's see here. Alina Abba, Trump defense lawyer, is now giving an update on Trump's case as it lands at the Supreme Court docket.
$75 million for Mar-a-Lago. Show me any property that's comparable for $20.
If that's worth $75 million, we should pool our finances.
You want to split it? We'll split it.
We could probably get a favorable loan and go down there. I mean, I'd love to have that. It'd be tough to air condition that place in the summer. Okay, so the former president said just this week that he would like the Supreme Court to take a look at this. How does that work?
So you file an application with the Supreme Court. They take a look at it. They've already said that they do want a DOJ response. So that's good. And what they'll do is they'll take a look at what the 11th Circuit did, which we believe was flawed, saying that the special master can't look at classified documents. Well, then why do you have a special master?
Right.
The 100 classified documents were the key point of this entire case. They were fighting about the special master so that they could appoint a special master to take control of those 100 documents. And if you recall, the appeal to the 11th Circuit was a jurisdictional issue, and they were saying that the appeal of the special master to the 11th Circuit by the government was not within the 11th Circuit's jurisdiction. That's what the appeal to the Supreme Court is all about, saying that the appeal to the 11th Circuit was invalid. They're asking the Supreme Court to essentially reverse all of that. And there is good argument to this. Alina Abba saying that if there were no 100 confidential documents, you wouldn't really need a referee to come in and help manage a situation, a debate over inconsequential documents is the point I'm trying to make. Here's Alina.
DOJ, again, dual justice system, trying to slow things down and try and get, what I'm sure they hope is some charge before midterms. It's all a political ploy, and it's nothingness. This is a library book situation.
A library book situation, indeed, Alina. You're exactly right about that. The head librarian, Deborah Steidel-Wall, is very unhappy that she didn't get those books returned to her on time. Trump made a little joke about her National Archives. She didn't like that. Now she's the most powerful person in the world. You don't return those library books, she just picks up the phone. Oh, hey, Merrick Garland, can you get Christopher Wray with the FBI on the phone? We need to go raid a former president. They say, no problem. When would you like to do it? How's Tuesday? Alina Abba, Trump's defense lawyer, explaining how SCOTUS is going to proceed once the government responds with their application response. Alina Abba also saying Trump doing quite well out there. You know, every time that there is a big issue with Trump, it seems like his poll numbers go up. Every time he gets attacked, Trump seems to weather the storm, almost like he thrives from it, almost like he's anti-fragile in a sense.
Why is Donald Trump any different, and why is he being treated so differently?
Because he still has a very large political career ahead of him if he so chooses. You know, my client is ahead in the polls, and every time they try and knock him down, his poll numbers go up. So you know what? We welcome it because he's going to fight back, and he continues to do so. But you're right. Look at Obama. He's got a warehouse of documents next to a freaking McDonald's.
McDonald's?
A McDonald's. Donald Trump's is at Mar-a-Lago, secure, gated, double locked, cooperating with the DOJ, with Secret Service around it, and he gets raided. It's a very frightening time for our country.
Donald Trump protected very well at Mar-a-Lago. He was there for many years, 4 years in fact, regularly attending that location, and it was highly secure at that time, good enough to have documents while he was the president. He still has Secret Service protection. He still has many privileges associated with the presidency. And is a raid something that is necessary when you have other presidents who apparently, according to Trump's defense team, they're hanging out outside McDonald's with chicken McNuggets and Happy Meals with their national security secrets? Why can't Trump have his down at a beach in Mar-a-Lago? That's Trump's defense lawyer, Alina Abba, who is explaining how the case and cases against Donald Trump are proceeding. And so we will, of course, have updates as they continue to come on all of the Donald Trump cases. And we appreciate you following and subscribing and joining us as we continue to cover it all. All right, my friends. Now we've got to talk about some interesting news here today. The FBI is raiding pro-lifers all across America. A new indictment just hit. We're going to take a look at it, but it involves a group of people protesting at abortion clinics. Biden, FBI, and DOJ going hog wild over some of these individuals involved. And so we'll take a look at all of this and more. But first, let's get some background on this family, the Marc Houck family. You can see big, beautiful, nice family here. Certainly looks like a group of terrorists, obviously joking about that. But you can see it's Marc and Ryan Marie Houck with their 7 children aged 2 to 13 years old. And now Marc got arrested, or he got raided. I'm not sure if he's actually been charged yet. But a little bit of background here coming out of the Catholic News Agency. They tell us the story. They say new information raises questions about a Catholic father of 7 who was raided by the FBI. You can see the family here. Nice family. They're talking about the arrest of a Catholic leader, father of 7, in a raid caused all sorts of an outcry. Marc Houck, the founder and the co-president of the King's Men, a men's ministry, faces federal charges stemming from a altercation that took place outside of a Planned Parenthood in Philadelphia. Marc, who regularly praised the Rosary outside the clinic, maintains he was defending his 12-year-old son from an escort's verbal harassment, somebody said. Now, this is where this gets interesting. Altercation was captured on video, and they're going to try to track that video down. But both the city police and the district attorney declined to file charges. Right, so here we criticize the FBI a lot because it's a federal law enforcement agency who comes crashing down upon local citizens, especially in cases where the local city police and the district attorney say, we don't need charges. Okay, the local people who are there don't need charges. The case was dismissed in July. The case already went to a private criminal complaint in Philadelphia. It was dismissed. The man didn't show up to court. Now, after this happened, just days later, Houck received a target letter from the U.S. Attorney's Office saying you're the subject of a criminal probe. His attorney's involved, and of course, they're dealing with this. Here's the scene from Marc's residence when the FBI showed up on his front door. Residence out in Pennsylvania. He was arrested that day, charged with assault. There it is. Federal law enforcement officials arrived there. A SWAT team of about 25 people came to his house. They said they were going to break in if they didn't open it. 5 guns. They were all pointing their weapons. 11 years if convicted. Now, it's not just Marc, right? There are many other individuals who are getting charged. We have an amazing report. Mia Cathell over on Twitter, she's from Town Hall. She put together an incredible thread detailing the insane activities of the FBI and the DOJ. She tells us 11 pro-life activists have been indicted. We're going to take a look at that by Biden's DOJ for protesting outside an abortion clinic in Tennessee. It says, meet the Christian Mimas and Papas charged as co-conspirators, now facing up to 11 years for a peaceful, quote, blockade demonstration. You see these people right here. Clearly those domestic violent extremists that they're talking about. Jesus is Lord. What an insurrectionist. Now, this is written by Mia Cathell, and I invite you to go follow her, but she has done some very interesting reporting here. She details who these individuals are. You see Heather Idoni, 58 years old, has a bookstore. It's now a Ukraine relief center, charged by the DOJ. There she is, terrorist. Pro-life advocate passport confiscated by the federal authorities. 61-year-old evangelist, pro-life missionary named Calvin, now being prosecuted, was arrested for reading from the Bible one time. Biden's DOJ is, it's not funny, actually. Biden's DOJ is targeting this pro-life street preacher. He advocates for peaceful prayer. This guy right here, who is out here talking about praying outside of abortion clinics. You have this woman here, the preacher's daughter, Eva Darlene Zastrow, named in a federal indictment. These are all the people that we're going to see and hear from in a minute. Pro-life physician, he was indicted. He was coordinating a peaceful protest at a clinic, saying things like, that baby's a gift from God. This is your son or daughter. Let us adopt. Here's another one, Paul Vaughn, charged by the DOJ. Here's another guy. This is Dennis Earl Green. He's a co-conspirator for protesting at abortion clinics. Now, do you see any of the same type of activity? Do you see big Antifa raids or anything like that? Anybody from like the sort of the BLM era, getting sort of indicted, raided? Has Patrisse Cullors been raided after she stole $60 million from, allegedly from BLM? Is that happening? Or is it just the peaceful protesters who were sitting outside abortion clinics? Here she is, pro-life icon Eva, arrested 40 times blockading abortion clinics. Hey, here they are. Here's some scenery. Instead of charging the far left terrorist who here she goes, bombed the pregnancy centers, they're targeting this pro-life grandmother. All right, so you can take a look at the double standards as they exist, obviously, but they're just arresting people all over the place because that's what the Biden administration does. Now, there was a new charge that came in this indictment. Let's make sure we have this pulled up. The Biden DOJ charging 11 pro-life activists. You see them listed here. We've got Chester Gallagher, Heather Idoni, Calvin Zastrow, Coleman Boyd, Carolyn Davis, Paul Vaughn, Dennis Green, Eva Zastrow, James Zastrow, and Paul Place. 11 of them charged with crimes, indicted October 3rd out of the Middle District of Tennessee. Several different charges, violation of U.S. Code, listed here. The grand jury came out and they said, all right, boys and girls, we have taken the time to review the material in this case, and we are stating the following. There is a clinic, a health center that's a provider of health services, specifically abortions, located in Tennessee. The following people were present on March 5th. We already listed them. Chester from Tennessee, Heather from Michigan, Calvin from Michigan, Coleman from Mississippi, Michigan, Tennessee, Virginia, South Carolina, Arkansas, Missouri, and Tennessee. Shout out to all of those states. Employee A, also listed here, was an employee at the clinic, was at work on March 5th. Patient A was a clinic patient who was seeking to obtain reproductive health services at the clinic on March 5th. And they tell us now that these charges are appropriate. 1. On or about February 10, 2021 to March 5th, they say in the Middle District, 7 people, Chester, Heather, Calvin, and others, did combine, conspire, and agree with one another to injure, oppress, threaten, intimidate patients and employees of the clinic in the free exercise and enjoyment of the rights and privileges secured to them by the United States, namely the right to seek and obtain reproductive health services as codified in United States law. We're going to have a little bit of a battle, aren't we, between the U.S. Code here, the statutory protections, and let's say the other statutory protections that exist for, I don't know, free speech, free association, free exercise, all of these freedoms codified in the First Amendment, Bill of Rights. The purpose of the conspiracy, according to this DOJ, it was the plan and the purpose of the conspiracy. Oh my gosh, it sounds nefarious. That all of these defendants named Chester, aided and abetted by each other and other co-conspirators, that they would create a blockade to stop the clinic from providing patients from obtaining reproductive health services. Now, of course, in every conspiracy, we know that we need multiple elements to form a legitimate conspiracy. You have to have a guilty sort of common scheme that everybody wants to be a part of. In this case, apparently it's blockading an abortion clinic. But then you need overt acts. You can't just sit around and say, we should go blockade an abortion clinic, or we should go rob a bank. You got to take an overt act in further of that to really make the conspiracy stick. Legally, they say the overt acts are as follows. In furtherance of the conspiracy and to accomplish the objects of the conspiracy, they've got to be related. The conspirators committed various overt acts such as the following. It's probably going to be pretty brutal, so if you've got little ones out there, let's hear how horrible this is. On or about February 21st out there, Chester utilized social media and he promoted a series of anti-abortion events scheduled for March through the 7th. All of that being done in Nashville. And Gallagher, he used the term rescue to describe a physical blockade of the reproductive health care facility. Yeah. In mid-February, Chester and Heather, they also used a Facebook account and a social media platform to coordinate travel logistics. And other blockade participants, unknown to the grand jury, to travel to Nashville. Idani used Facebook to identify blockade participants who would be willing to risk arrest to further the objects of the conspiracy. Can you believe how they're talking about these people? What? Blockade participants. What? On or about February 2021, Carolyn used Facebook to communicate to another terrorist called Coleman that she would meet him for, quote, a rescue in Tennessee in March. Davis then did meet with Boyd and others in Tennessee to participate in the blockade. Heather and others, all of these others are known from other states, and they traveled to Tennessee. On or about March 4th, they advertised the clinic blockade. They posted on Facebook. They said, Lord willing, our family will be doing a Facebook Live of some ministry activities tomorrow morning at about 7:45 a.m. Please be in prayer towards this, and please plan to join us and share it if possible. On or about 7:45, they stood in the hallway outside of the clinic, and Coleman used his Facebook account to create a live stream titled Mount Juliet Rescue. Others on the grand jury, others known and unknown to the grand jury, gathered in the hallway outside of the clinic suite, directly outside of the clinic's two entry doors. Calvin and Chester, they stood directly in front of the main entry door blocking access to the clinic, they allege. And they commenced their live stream at 7:45 a.m., saying that they announced themselves, they put their names out there on the Facebook clinic, and they said the clinic was scheduled to open at 8 a.m. That's why they're there at 7:45. At 7:51, Dennis, he also recorded himself entering the clinic. Green recorded himself entering the clinic, and he rode up the clinic floor. Others unknown to them live streamed the video, and others also walked through the hallways and assumed positions. And they say that when Coleman Boyd was scheduled, when patient A arrived, so patient A and her companion arrived outside the clinic for a scheduled service, Coleman Boyd was right there. He was standing next to the only hallway leading to the clinic's entry doors. Coleman attempted to engage patient A by asking her numerous questions. Boyd asked patient A if she's trying to come to the abortion mill. Patient A responded and walked away. But Boyd persisted, and he said, "Can we talk to you for a minute?" Boyd then encouraged one of his children to approach patient A and her companion. Boyd's child then walked up to patient A and asked her companion if they're looking for the abortion clinic. Patient A and her companion then walked into the crowded hallway but stopped short of the clinic entrance. This was directly live streamed Boyd told his live stream audience that patient A was a mom coming to kill her baby. When employee A returned to the clinic staff, Calvin physically blocked the door for the clinic staff. Zastrow refused to move from the door, and they acknowledged that he was trespassing. Employee A was unable to enter the clinic and exited the building. Shortly after 8 a.m., Chester used his Facebook account, saying that they were leading a rescue, that they were present, willing to go to jail if need be, saying that they had delay tactics in order to convince people not to do something. They announced to others on the grand jury, saying that it's very important that if you're not planning on being arrested, don't sit in front of the door. Don't get pictured blocking the door. I don't want anybody blocking the door, otherwise you're going to be arrested, is what they're saying. After the officers with the Mount Juliet Police Department arrived and they directed individuals in the hallway to leave, Chester and others said that we're at the point now where we need to know who's going to jail and who's not going to jail. During Chester's live stream, others alerted the police. Others were alerted the police were going to arrest individuals after giving a final warning. Vaughn spoke with the police officers he stood next to, who explained to his Facebook live stream that they're trying to buy us as much time as we have. All of the people on the Facebook live streams say that we've already helped turn away one couple. We're hoping to stop as many murderous appointments as we can. So let's see what the rest of the counts are. Count 2, and all of these are all of these other charges are incorporated herein. That they intimidated, interfered, attempted to injure, intimidate, and interfere with patient A, employee A, at the clinic. Signed off a true bill here. 2 counts. Here they are. Conspiracy to obstruct access to a clinic providing reproductive health services, max prison, 10 years. And violation of the FACE Act. Clerk issued a warrant for all of the various individuals. You can see 1 per person. This one's for Chester Gallagher. This one's for Heather E. Donnie. This one's from Calvin, and so on. We can see all of the various charges for all of the various individuals listed here. Let's see if there's anything else interesting. There is not. So here you can see they are detailing in a cover sheet how long they expect these trials to take place. They say that they've been indicted. Paul Place, 5-day trial is something that they're estimating, as looks like 11 pro-life activists are indicted. Federal indictments coming out of the Biden administration. Now, a lot of questions about this. Here's the scene of what the raid looked like when the FBI showed up.
But if you're not going,
pro-life activists arrested by the FBI. This is the scene at one of the homes when they showed up and made the arrest without much explanation.
to let me, then I'll just.
No, I want to know why you were banging on my door with a gun. You're not going to tell me anything?
I tried.
No, you didn't.
Yes, I did.
You did not try.
Protesting, 10 years in jail and home arrest with dozens of FBI agents. Armed up.
This is not acceptable.
Federal agents. Wow, that's a pretty big gun
Can I
there.
have your name?
Nope, not even talking to her.
You're not going to give me your name. You're not going to give me any information.
Bye. So you can throw Molotov cocktails at all sorts of different, firebomb different facilities. You can get away with all sorts of crimes unless you're on the wrong side of the political aisle. FBI just shows up, grabs your husband, and off you go. That's Joe Biden's America, just rounding people up and taking them on out. GOP representatives very unhappy with these new DOJ developments. Representative Jim Jordan fired off a letter to the Honorable Jacqueline Romero, a U.S. attorney out of the Eastern District of Pennsylvania. You can see Jim Jordan published this October 7th, coming out of the Congress of the United States House of Representatives, signed by Jim Jordan, ranking member from Ohio. He writes to the U.S. attorney, he says, "Dear Miss Romero, we continue to investigate the politicization of the Biden-Garland DOJ and the FBI. Several recent actions by the department reinforce the conclusion that the Justice Department is using its federal law enforcement authority as a weapon against their political opponents. Since the unprecedented leak of a draft in Dobbs, the Justice Department has politicized the enforcement of the FACE Act, the Freedom of Access to Clinic Entrances. And they say, we right to conduct oversight of your authorization of a dawn raid of a home of a pro-life leader in front of his wife and 7 children when he had offered to voluntarily cooperate with you and your authorities." Jordan says, "The FACE Act prohibits threats of force, obstruction, and property damage intended to interfere with reproductive health services. According to the Justice Department, you people, the act also protects pro-life pregnancy counseling services and any other pregnancy support facility providing reproductive health care. And since the leak of the Dobbs opinion, however, the department has almost exclusively enforced the FACE Act to protect anti-life activists while failing to prosecute harassment and the intimidation of pro-life supporters. The people who are on the right side of the political argument, protected. Anti-life activists, the pro-aborters out there, they're saying that if they do anything in response to pregnancy health life centers, pregnancy support facilities, no charges. But if it's pro-lifers, they're facing criminal prosecution by the DOJ. On September 23rd, the FBI raided the home of Marc Houck, a pro-life leader residing within your judicial district, to execute an arrest warrant for allegedly violating the FACE Act. You alleged in a press release that Houck had shoved a Planned Parenthood volunteer outside a clinic almost a year earlier, back in October. Houck's wife, Ryan Marie, however, explained that a Planned Parenthood activist had repeatedly made crude and inappropriate and disgusting comments about Houck in the presence of their 12-year-old son, and that person had gotten into the personal space of the child. Footnote 5. That comes from an article written in a national review signed by Patrick Delaney talking about the FBI raiding the home. Marie said that a local court in Philadelphia had already thrown out a civil suit against Houck filed by the activists. So that person who sort of got in there and was screaming bad profanities at a 12-year-old kid filed a civil suit against Houck and then lost it. The department's decision to arrest Houck, as well as the tactics used to effectuate the arrest, are troubling. Ryan Marie recounted how an FBI SWAT team of about 25 came to my house with about 15 vehicles. They had about 5 guns pointed at my husband, myself, and basically at my kids. An anonymous FBI source denied to the media that the 25 agents were present, but did admit that authorities sent up to 20 agents to effectuate the arrests. Houck's attorney subsequently disclosed that the dawn raid was necessary because Houck had offered to appear voluntarily, was unnecessary. He previously said, I'll just show up there. Okay, look, and this happens all the time. Lawyers communicate self-surrenders with FBI agents and state and local prosecutors all the time. You don't need to do this stuff. Is he going to hide evidence of his misdeeds, of the appearance at the abortion facility? No. There's no reason to do this, other than solely to intimidate people of faith and pro-life Americans. Jim Jordan says, the department's treatment of Houck stands in stark contrast to its treatment of potential acts of domestic violent extremism against pro-life facilities. For example, on June 10, vandals smashed the windows and they graffitied the walls of the Hope Pregnancy Center, a pro-life pregnancy center in your judicial district. Lawyer. There was no press release from your office regarding an investigation or charges in that case. And just last week, an 83-year-old pro-life volunteer at Lake Odessa in Michigan was shot while canvassing a local neighborhood about an abortion ballot proposal. There has been no outcry or press conference from the DOJ in response to that. And since the leak of the Dobbs opinion, Jane's Revenge, a radical anti-life group, has claimed responsibility for at least 18 arson and vandalism attacks on pro-life clinics and organizations. While the FBI says that it's investigating, quote, a series of attacks and threats targeting pregnancy resource centers and faith-based organizations and reproductive health clinics, Jim Jordan says, to our knowledge, he's in Congress, the department and the FBI have not executed any SWAT team raids during the dawn hours to make arrests of anti-life activists. And if you are, that'd be great to know. We'd all like to know about that. Jordan continues, he says, pro-life pregnancy centers nationwide play a critical and an important role in supporting and assisting pregnant women. In 2019, 2,700 centers served nearly 2 million people, and they continue to serve millions of women annually. Pro-life pregnancy centers exist to serve and support mothers in the courageous decision to give their child life, even under the most difficult circumstances. Jordan continues. He says services and resources provided virtually free of charge include, but they're not limited to, ultrasounds, pregnancy testing, STD testing, parenting, prenatal education programs, diapers, and even baby outfits. Pro-life pregnancy centers deserve the same protections that the department aggressively provides abortion clinics. If you're going to arrest these pro-lifers, there's a whole group of Jane's Revengers out there. You got to go make sure the same standards apply to them, right? Jordan says, the DOJ's lackluster response to the attacks against pro-life facilities demonstrates that Biden would rather cater to the radical anti-life movement than help facilities that protect women in need. So that we in Congress can better understand why you, government prosecutor, have declined to evenly enforce federal law in your district, please provide the following information. And remember, this is going to a U.S. attorney, a prosecutor in the district. Can you explain to us why you're doing this way and not this that way? Curious. And to help us come to that determination, we'd like the following documents from you. 1, all documents and communications between the U.S. Attorney's Office and the Eastern District of Pennsylvania with the DOJ about the FACE Act, the Freedom of Access to Clinic Entrances. We also want to know about any communications that you've had with the DOJ's Reproductive Rights Task Force. And we'd also like a spreadsheet about all of the attacks on pregnancy resource centers between May 2nd up till now that you've worked on. Give us some details on that as well. And we also would appreciate it if you gave us all communications about the attack on the Hope Pregnancy Center in Philadelphia. Did you guys investigate that? Did you make a charging decision? Did you have a declination officially filed somewhere? We'd like to see it. And all documents that you have sent to the FBI about the arrest of Marc Houck. We want it all, says Jim Jordan. Please provide this information as soon as possible, but no later than 5 p.m. sharp on October 21st. And further, this letter serves as a formal request, here it is, to preserve all existing and future records and materials in your possession on this topic. You should construe this preservation notice as an instruction to take all reasonable steps to prevent the destruction or alteration, whether intentionally or negligently, of all documents and communications that have been stored. Anything that might be responsive to this congressional inquiry, you better hang on to that. This instruction includes all electronic messages, emails, phone accounts, personal accounts, records, everything, text messages, phone messages, and encryption software. We're getting it all. Thank you for your prompt attention to this matter. Signed, Jim Jordan, ranking member, along with Mike Johnson, Subcommittee on the Constitution, Civil Rights, and Civil Liberties. All going over to the U.S. Attorney and the DOJ, and they're saying, boy, oh boy, we're going to be in charge soon enough here, and when it is our time, I don't want you to even think about telling me that you deleted it, all right? Because I sent you this letter on October 7th that said preserve it or else. We'll see if they do. We know how that story often goes. But Jim Jordan was not alone. We also had a letter from Chip Roy. Chip Roy, demanding answers from the DOJ, sent this letter September 27th, says, Dear Attorney General Garland, as you know, Marc Houck, a father of 7, was arrested. He's a noted Catholic and he's a pro-life activist. 15 vehicles showed up. They began pounding on his door. The agents allegedly stated they're going to break into the home unless the wife opens the door. This raid occurred after somebody insulted his 12-year-old son, saying there's much to learn about the FBI's operations in this case. Surely, says Chip Roy, the FBI must have an extraordinary reason for showing up at the home of an American family, allegedly with roughly 25 heavily armed federal agents, and arresting a father in front of his 7 children. At this moment, writes Chip, this appears to be an extraordinary overreach for political ends. And now we request an explanation from you for the excessive level of force used by the FBI in this case and why the power of the federal law enforcement was once again used against an American citizen in what should be a state and local matter that already was a state and local matter that was declined by state and local prosecutors. Chip Roy says, please issue a written response by September 30th, and we'll see if he got that. I doubt it. The FBI continues to make their arrests, and the GOP starting to show some signs of life. Maybe they'll do something about it if they gain power. But of course, we will continue to cover it. Thank you for liking this video wherever it is you're watching it, and I look forward to seeing you on the next one. All right, my friends, and we've got one final segment before we jump into your questions and your comments on the day over on Locals and elsewhere. Chase James over on Rumble says, time to put the kids to bed, catch up on the next show. Well, have a great night over there, Chase James. Thanks for being over there on Rumble. Hope you have an amazing night. And both you and your children sleep very well over there in your household. All right, and we've got one final segment to get into. President Biden brings Armageddon. Basically, everywhere he goes, everything seems to break. Or as others have said, everything he touches turns to. And so today we're going to talk about a very troubling message that President Biden had for a bunch of his rich Democrat friends, stuff that they won't really talk to us about. He'll communicate about with his Democratic donors. The story comes over from the AP. Biden and his Armageddon talk edges beyond the bounds, what they say is of U.S. intel. And look at the photograph they used here of the Joe Biden president. Here he is. Even the AP is like, this guy's a disaster. Here, pick up that image where it looks like he doesn't know anything. Use that one. That's what they went with, rightfully so. The AP tells us President Joe Biden's warning that the world is at risk of a nuclear Armageddon, which means the end of it all. Like we all die. It's all over. Coming from the president, they say, was designed to send an unvarnished message that no one should underestimate the extraordinary danger that the world is in. The president's grim assessment, they say, was delivered to a Democratic fundraiser, all of his rich friends. Yeah, make sure you go diversify your portfolios, get out of these things or whatever. He makes that known to them, but it rippled out around the globe. And they say it appeared to edge beyond the boundaries of what the U.S. intelligence experts are saying. So, of course, the U.S., like most things, they came out and they just walk it all back. Let's continue. U.S. security officials continue to say they have no evidence that Vladimir Putin has imminent plans for a nuclear strike. Biden says we're all going to die. The White House says no, we're not. Every time he misspeaks, they walk it back. Biden veered into talk about Ukraine at the end of his standard fundraising remarks, saying that, quote, Putin was not joking when he talks about the use of nuclear weapons or biological and chemical weapons. This is a point we've made here many times. We've watched Putin and we've seen his demeanor and his consistency over the years. We've considered this an existential threat here. It's been pretty obvious that if Putin loses legitimacy and credibility, it's going to be analogous to the fall of Russia, which would be the end of their entire world. And so when he says it's an existential crisis, I think it kind of makes sense to believe him. In this case, evidently, the president does. Joe says he's not joking when he talks about the use of tactical nuclear weapons or biological chemical weapons. He said, quote, we have not faced the prospect of Armageddon since Kennedy and the Cuban Missile Crisis. He said that the threat from Putin is real because his military is, you might say, significantly underperforming. And if you're pushed into a corner, you may really have to act out. Now, the White House, of course, disagrees with the president, and they have to correct him when he speaks. White House Press Secretary Karine Jean-Pierre on Friday did not directly respond to a question about whether he'd gone off in the event or whether he intended to invoke Armageddon. But they were trying to clarify things. She told reporters, she said, Russia's talk of using nuclear weapons is irresponsible and there's no way to use them without unintended consequences. Adding, if the Cuban Missile Crisis has taught us anything, it's the value of reducing risk and not brandishing it. Officials saying don't underestimate the use of nuclear weapons, and this could turn into a gigantic problem. The president, ordinarily when he speaks, it's supposed to carry some weight, supposed to have some consequence. So people are listening to the president and they're saying, if he's saying Armageddon is actually coming, are his actions matching his rhetoric? Is there anything that he's doing that might support that prospect? Turns out maybe there is. The Epoch Times is reporting that the United States government buys $290 million worth of drugs in preparation for nuclear emergencies. Oh, great. Hopefully they're not mandatory. The U.S. Department is now buying $290 million, part of its long-standing ongoing efforts to be better prepared for radiological and nuclear emergencies. This was announced from the Administration for Strategic Preparedness and Response back on October 4th. It is approved by the FDA to treat blood cell injuries, acute radiation syndrome. Nplate is the name of the drug. Stops radiation-induced bleeding and all of those things. Now, I was looking through here to see if, where Pfizer and Moderna was, but maybe they just, maybe it's a subsidiary or something. But yeah, a lot of big money now going into the prospect of nuclear war. Doesn't seem too good. Very interesting article from an individual named Policy Tensor talking about a nuclear Zugzwang. And this is a new term for me. I had not learned about this, a chess term, and we'll learn a little bit more about it. But this article came from Policy Tensor over at Substack, and we're going to read a little bit. I'd encourage you to follow him and read the rest of the article on his Substack and support his work. But here's what he says. A nuclear Zugzwang? How should the U.S. respond if the Russians go first? If they use the nukes first? Policy writes, we've entered a dramatically more fraught and a dangerous phase in the struggle over Ukraine. Putin's recent decision to have two parallel objectives is concerning. One, shore up Russia's position, but that's just a secondary goal. The broader goal is that he is not going to accept defeat in Ukraine. And there is a big signal. Says Putin is now mobilizing reserves. 300,000 troops and maybe more are now going to the front. He said that this signals that Putin is burning the bridges. This is a resolve signaling theory, saying that there is nothing that is going to stop us from being victorious. Putin has issued very pointed nuclear threats using language that was published in their nuclear use policy. Now he tells us that whether or not these annexed territories are Russian territories is not the important question. At this point, doesn't really matter. Right now, the important question is not even whether the Russian elites believe that preventing Ukraine is a vital interest. They say the United States war aim now, from the U.S. perspective, is to see Russia weaken to such a degree that it can't do the types of things that it wants to do. In other words, the point here is that Russia has to be removed. Now, suppose that if the United States continues on this trajectory and it's Russia loses everything at all costs, as we've talked about with Jake Sullivan and others, saying that the only way for a settlement, a settled negotiated peace, is if Putin pays the consequences. we pick up there. Suppose that Russian armies in Ukraine are at risk of collapse, and Putin's options are now to introduce nuclear weapons into the conflict. It's either nukes or lose. In a desperate situation, Putin may find that escalation is actually more attractive. And what does that look like? Russian nuclear use at any scale whatsoever, any type of bomb at all, will completely transform the conflict. It's going to break a 76-year-old taboo, and it's going to cause an extremely dramatic situation throughout the world. Says, we should expect a worldwide panic, the sort we've never seen before, not even in October 1962, which was, quote, a mild crisis by comparison. Consider the least escalatory option that the Russians might use. The Russians might use a demonstration detonation, in quotes. Russian forces airburst, and they do this to avoid the nuclear fallout that comes from a ground detonation. A tactical nuclear weapon with a sub-kiloton yield, for example, no bigger than just a regular conventional weapon, over uninhabited territory somewhere in the southeastern Ukraine. Doesn't kill anybody, doesn't wreck any buildings, it's up in the air, and it's a small nuclear bomb. But it is a nuclear bomb, and it is in Ukrainian territory, and that is the demonstration. That type of activity would be consistent with Russia's, quote, escalate to de-escalate doctrine. But what happens then? Precisely because it would be such a dramatic break with precedent, even a demonstration detonation would radically change the course of the war. New Yorkers and Berliners, etc., are likely to flee the cities everywhere. Everywhere in Europe and America, supermarkets would likely empty within hours. Many local authorities may institute civil defense measures, even as federal governments everywhere urge calm. A widespread breakdown of law and order would be a real possibility, especially in America, where it would be attended by a partisan passions and finger-pointing. Under such conditions, keeping the Western alliance together will become extraordinarily difficult. Indeed, it's possible that even NATO would break under pressure as anti-war and pro-Russian forces emerge from the repercussions and break the Western coalition. Policy says, in my judgment, the immediate battlefield effect would be to force freeze the military on the ground. The psychological impact of the detonation alone would force the Ukrainians to halt all military offenses immediately. And if the Ukrainians had such a great appetite that they wanted the military to continue, the U.S. would be forced to back down. For the diplomatic effect would be just as dramatic. The verbal response of the community of nations will be so loud that the global pressure would put on the warring parties to stop fighting. It would be insurmountable. They tell us what a Zugzwang is. If this comes to pass, if the Russians use this, the United States will find itself with only bad options. In effect, Russia would have imposed a nuclear Zugzwang on the United States. A Zugzwang is a situation in which the obligation to make a move in one's turn is a decisive disadvantage. It's playing a game of chess, and your opponent has to make a move, and it's going to be a bad move. They have no choice. Russia goes first. Is the United States in a Zugzwang? The U.S. nuclear response would be out of the question. U.S. can't use nukes. Given the reality of mutually assured destructions, can't nuke back. The United States could attempt to impose heavy costs on Russia with, I guess, even harsher sanctions. But he says even that's been largely exhausted, and we've done that in vain. And we could escalate the supply of the long-range weapons and send all of that stuff over to Ukraine, but they're not nukes. The Russians have the nukes. Meanwhile, the pressure on the U.S. forces to force the Ukrainians to concede would be inconceivable. It would be considerable. And now this article goes on from Policy Tensor. Brilliant article. I'd encourage you to go follow that and learn more about a nuclear Zugzwang over at Substack. Check out Policy Tensor over there. But a very concerning gamification of how this process may go. If the Russians strike first, the United States is sort of caught between a rock and a hard place with not a lot of options. So many people are concerned. Is America and the world facing an impending Armageddon? That's what Joe Biden said. But Joe Biden saying things doesn't matter a whole lot to most people because he can't talk anymore. Here is the president telling America about the two This is President Joe Biden explaining to America the two and only two most important words of all time for our country.
Let me start off with two words. Made in America. Made in America.
I'm pretty sure that's three words. Let's count them.
Let me start off with two words. Made in America.
Ugh.
Made in America.
Oh, it's three words. Oh, man. I know I'm not too good with numbers here, but I'm pretty sure I can count to three. Oh, no. So the president is having a difficult time. So if Joe Biden says that an Armageddon is coming to take out America, maybe that's not true at all, because he can't even know the difference between 2 and 3.
Let me start off with two words. Made in America. Made in America.
Maiden America? Like maiden voyage? Maiden America voyage, maybe? Not so sure. But the president is having a very difficult time with a lot of things. Not only is Joe Biden promising an impending Armageddon, but he's also now saying, yeah, gas prices are going back up too. I tried to help, but it's still Putin's fault. Putin's going to nuke us all, and he's responsible for your high gas prices, America.
Cost is going to go up, not down. And I realize costs are going up on food, and I was able to bring gasoline down well over $1.60, but it's inching up because of what the Russians and the Saudis just did.
Putin's fault.
I'm not finished with that yet.
Saudi's fault too. And he's not finished with that yet. Our real tough guy president, Joe Biden, is going to go, I guess, have a conversation with the Saudis and gas prices are going to come down. Who knows? Very bizarre individual. Doesn't really know much of anything. Having a really difficult time out there. Made in America, 2 words, yeah. Yeah, and Joe Biden, when asked about this, didn't want to talk about it. The president runs away from the media when asked about his Armageddon comment. Many journalists are just like you and me. They don't want nuclear explosions to eviscerate their lives and their families. And so if the president, who's supposed to be somebody who's pretty plugged in and cognizant, the leader of the free world type of a thing, they might know something that maybe the journalists want to hear about. Mr. President, are we all going to die? Should I pick up my stuff and go in my bunker? Yes or no? Can you please answer some questions? Joe Biden doesn't want to talk. He wants to run away.
Mr. President, will you talk to us about Putin, sir?
Just running. I don't know why.
Armageddon is coming, sir!
What's he doing? Oh, you can't see it here. Why is he running away? Here he is again.
Mr. President, will you talk to us about Putin, sir?
He's just running.
You think Armageddon is coming, sir?
What's he doing? I think he runs because he wants you to think that he's competent. He's like, oh, look, he can move sort of quickly for some reason. Yesterday, he's backing away from the media. He's like, no sudden movements. Don't scare the president. We're just slowly baking his way out. But then now he's just running all over the place. I don't know why he's running. He's running from the media. Maybe he knows, maybe Putin launched something. He's like, we better get out of here. Like that scene from Independence Day. I don't know. Are the aliens coming? That's the president, Joe Biden, running away. President Biden's not the only person who's running away all over the place. We have Jerry Nadler, the waddler, the man running around Congress with 30 to 45 pounds of excrement in his diaper as he stinks up the entire congressional buildings. He was cited. Fox News had some questions for him. They say, Jerry, you know, your policies are wrecking America. Can we talk to you about some of this stuff? He's going to be busy, yeah.
Okay. Tomorrow, does that work?
Tomorrow?
Who should we reach out to in your office, Congressman? We just want to talk about the crime crisis in America.
We got a crisis in America. And so here's Nadler waddling over there.
I want to talk about the crisis that is impacting our country with
There's the waddle.
Congressman Nadler, we set up a meeting with your office and that was
Yeah.
tomorrow, does that work? Who should we reach out to in your office, Congressman? We just want to talk about the crime crisis in America.
Yeah, Lean says over there, he's kind of cute. It's like a little creature kind of a thing, waddling around Congress, and that's who's in charge. That's who's been in charge for like 35 years or something. No answers to much. Doesn't want to talk to anybody. Just wants to waddle on away, out of sight, and back to the diaper changing facility, if there is one in Congress. Amazing. More people are running away. Katie Hobbs in the Arizona governor's race is running away from Hispanics. Doesn't want to talk to them. In this video, we have Kari Lake, who showed up for a town hall. She was there to meet the people and to talk about the issues. But Katie Hobbs, the Democrat governor candidate, ran away, just like many Democrats are running away in elections all over America.
Kari Hobbs and Kari Lake were invited. Unfortunately, Katie Hobbs declined the invitation.
Oh, loser.
Kari Lake, however, did accept the invitation. So
Kari Lake accepted it.
Candidate for governor of Arizona, Kari Lake.
Yay! She comes right out. She'll have a conversation with you, no problem. Oh, nobody's standing there at Katie's podium. Oh.
Thank you so much for
Oh, everybody's running away. All the Democrats with their terrible ideas. Nobody wants to talk about them. No debates. They all just want to slunk out and try the Biden strategy to see if that gets them elected. We'll see how it works out for them. But that, my friends, is it for the show on the day. We covered a lot of ground today. Biden brings Armageddon. We had a pretty serious update on the FBI raiding the pro-lifers all across America, and a short update on some of the Trump stuff at the start of the show. But now it is time to hear from you, my friends, and to see what you have to say over from our friends at watchingthewatchers.locals.com. And by the way, I see that we've got some donos that came in over on YouTube. Thank you, my friends. All of those are going to be matched. All of that is going over to Eric's house. And the event is live tomorrow, and it's going to be amazing. So check out the link in the description below if you want to go and support Eric's House, an organization that really is doing some amazing work out there. And so now let's get this stuff queued up. Oh, hey, See the Veil sent in a dono. That's going to be matched and going over to Eric's House. So thank you to See the Veil for that one. And a big shout out over to... I don't know what his shout out to Eddie. I don't know what his username is, but shout out to Eddie. Eddie, you know who you are. Eddie sent in a big dono yesterday, which is going to be matched. He sent me a text message. He said, "Hey, guess what, big boy? You're going to have to match this dono." And I said, "Oh gosh, I'm going to be broke." Thanks, Eddie. So thank you for that. Oh my goodness. Here, Paul Me Knows in the house. It looks like it's Meme Friday. Paul Me Knows coming in over from Locals. Let's see what Paul has for us. Help, we can shine that big, beautiful spotlight down upon our system with the hope of finding... It is a beautiful spotlight, baby. It is. Tomorrow, and I hope to see you there so that together with your help, we can shine that big, beautiful spotlight amazing down upon our system with the hope of finding justice. Oh, that's outstanding. That's so good. Oh my gosh. I love it. I love it. I love it. One more time on this one. Here, let's pull it up. Here, let's pull it up on the big screen. Here, let's pull that up on the big screen here so that we can, let's just magnify that up for everybody here. Tomorrow. Yes. All right, here we go. Tomorrow, and I hope to see you there so that together with your help, we can shine that big, beautiful spotlight down upon our system with the hope. That's right, baby. Justice. That big, beautiful, that's what it is, baby. That's how I feel. Every time I say big, beautiful spotlight, I feel justice, baby, freedom, oh, transparency and accountability. That's how I feel every time. I really do. Thank you, Paul, for that. Oh, too good. That's an amazing one. Thank you, Paul, for that one. And Ray KOK says amazing. Hey, and that's over on YouTube. Like, Paul, do you have a YouTube channel? I mean, that's your YouTube channel. So that Paul Bino has a YouTube channel. That's unlisted. So Paul, let me know. I mean, we could share those links out. You're a meme smith, baby. That's pretty amazing work. That's Paul Mino on YouTube. Go check him out. All right. Thank you for that, Paul. Absolutely love it. All right, let's see what else we got coming in here. Hey, this one came in from C. Rose. He says, Rob, you've probably already heard Rekieta's channel has been restored. I did see that. And welcome back. Holy moly. That's really incredible news. I'm very glad to see that's the case. We talked about that on the Walk and Talk video. I'm very glad that happened. It says, P.S. Is there anything better than finding a winning issue for a case? For example, when you find out the police did not follow a required procedure and so the whole case gets tossed. It's kind of like finding out you got an A on your exam you didn't properly prepare for because everyone else in the class skipped a question. Oh, gosh. Or all of this comment was very great until this point. Or like a nice, refreshing Pepsi after eating a slice of Hawaiian pizza while watching Terminator 1. And he says, P.S. Top Gun Maverick is an acceptable substitute. It's like the worst sentence I've ever read. A refreshing Pepsi eating a slice of Hawaiian pizza watching Terminator 1. Oh, gosh. Gosh. User's going to be banned for this post. Okay, FedCure says, Rob, have you seen this? Right to life protesters federal indictment. We did, FedCure. We covered that on the show today. We did. We covered that big time. Here's a couple more. Here, this one is from another one from Paul. It's going to be incredible. I have no doubt about it. All right, here's another one from Paul. I don't know what this is. Here we go. Here's another one. It's going to be incredible. I have no doubt about it because Paul, hopefully it's got a lot of GIFs in there. Use GIFs. As many GIFs as you can. Oh my gosh. Oh my gosh. Paul, these are too much. No doubt about it because Paul, hopefully it's got a lot of GIFs in there. Use GIFs. As many GIFs as you can. Oh, I can't take it. I can't take it. Why? Yeah, GIFs. What's the word? It's GIFs, Paul. FedCure is here. Thank you, Paul. You should post those, man. Those are funny. Paul says, ciao, Roberto. Or this is from FedCure. He says, ciao, Roberto, patriots and friends. Here's the thought that may best explain what we're seeing with this administration. The Biden crime family and the cabal that have been exposed know that they will be put to death when caught. I don't know about that. I mean, I can't, I got to be careful, Secret Service and all of that. It is why they're grabbing as much money and power as they can before they have to leave. Their complete disregard for the law and order in doing so explains their desperations and their motives. This is what criminals do when they're about to be busted. Jason on Blast is here, says, impeach me for Joe Biden. Republicans very well may. Rai T says, nuclear. It's pronounced nuclear. Got it. Yeah, nuclear. Just like it, you say it just like it's spelled. Yeah, nuclear. Got it. Here's a couple more came in. Let's see what we've got here. Troll Master says, hey, Rob, you may answer this, but how do we watch the Eric's House event? So go to ericshouse.org. Tomorrow it's going to be, go to ericshouse.org tomorrow, and the video will be there. The link and everything you need will be there at ericshouse.org. And I believe we're streaming it on the Eric's House YouTube channel, which is where it will be posted, where it will be live streamed. It will not be live streamed here. It's going to be live streamed on their channel. He says, is this a meme? Is this me? Says, let those who worship evils might beware my power, the big spotlight. Ooh, that's pretty interesting little looky there. Who is this creature? Is that Biden? Is that me? Is that me and Biden as the Green Lantern? Hey man. I kind of always wanted to be a superhero. I don't have any special powers, but maybe one day I'll be bitten by a spider. Jason says, thanks for all the good work you do. Thank you, Jason. Jason's been very generous. Says, thank you for supporting Eric's House. And that's right. All of the donos that are going over to Eric's House, which are done through the link in the description below, those are also being matched. And so thank you very much for that, Jason. Extremely generous of you. says, hey, Rob. Words Mean Things says, hey, Rob, I just made a donation on the Give Butter site. I think I did it right and that it's credited to you, so you'll get to match it. Which is great. Thank you, Words Mean Things. Okay, so let me go over to the Give Butter and actually pull that up so that we can see what activity we've got going on over there, because I see some. Whoa, baby, we're getting some donos in here. Yes, from Words Mean Things. Here's Words Mean Things. Says, what a great thing to support. I'm so sorry your family experienced this, but what a blessing that you've turned it into helping others who are experiencing it themselves. Blessings to you and everyone at Eric's house. That's amazing. Thank you, Words Mean Things. Yeah, and we're going to be really hitting it hard tomorrow. A lot of people need help and healing and hope and love after they've lost somebody. Jason Kennedy says, got a $100 dono in for a ticket on that one. Another dono came in from Anonymous. Another one from Anonymous. Kevin Chadwick sent in some money. Hey, the Chadwicks are in the house. Kevin and Ann Chadwick, amazing. Wishing you love and support, wishing you a successful event. Shout out to the Chadwicks. Oh my goodness, love you guys. All right, and so you can see just people coming out of the woodwork all over the place. Here's the agenda that we're going to be going through tomorrow. It's 12 a.m. to 3:53 p.m. I'm going to be emceeing the whole thing. I actually have to do an interview and actually talk about my brother and my loss and all that. I'm not excited about it, but it's coming up at 3:20 tomorrow. My mom was like, You're doing it. And I said, what? Fine. Okay. So we'll do it. It's personal stuff and I don't like to get into it, but it's for healing and good stuff. So we're going to get into all of that tomorrow at Eric's house. And I do hope you join us. It's some hard stuff to talk about, but we're going to get into it. All of it tomorrow. And I appreciate you joining us over there. Here's some more. We've got Uncle Shane says, Rob, you would think that if Trump was knowingly committing crimes with documents, he'd hide them a little better than boxes in his office. Mar-a-Lago is big, probably had some good hiding spots. It's equivalent to committing a crime with a check. It just sounds stupid. It does sound stupid. It sounds like stupid, overdue library books. It really does. Good to see you, Uncle Shane. Here, this one came in from Former, says, hey, big boy, way off topic. Yesterday, you spoke of law enforcement cracking down on racing and speeding. 40 years ago, I towed through Phoenix to Chandler to drag race at the brand new Firebird Raceway, which is a cool spot. I've been down there. As the years went by, I noticed that Phoenix had almost expanded to Chandler. The track is located on a reservation, hotels, and casino. Over time, with the value of land increasing, they're in the process of determining they want to remove the facility and use other things. There's going to be a second drag strip closed in the last several years. Speed World Drag in Arizona, in Surprise, Arizona. With no safe facility for high-performance vehicles, the street becomes the only alternative. Just my thoughts. Oh, I like it. It's sort of Former has a need for speed, okay? And if you can't get that speed somewhere, you got to hit the streets, baby. Former LEO says, nice to see that Ricada served up a giant turd burger for YouTube to swallow. Well done. I'm glad he's back. I don't know what the heck happened, but I got some notifications on my phone. Hey, Ricada's back. And I'm like, hey, that's really, really good news because it makes me sad, that this stuff doesn't, that this goes on. I think he's a good dude, and I don't like to see bad things happen to good people. Here, Vienticus says, Rumble rants came in. Thank you, V. Gosh, I can't, the Rumble rants, they fly by and I can't see them. Here they are. YT Band ME34 says, always beautiful and sunny, Snobsdale, Arizona. Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of that here. That is true, no doubt. John McGarvey with another dono over to Eric's house via Rumble. Thank you, John McGarvey. All that is going to go over to Eric's house and all for an amazing cause. All right, we're doing a refresh. Former LEO says, I can understand now how Germans felt while being governed by an insane person. Yeah, that's a good point. Yeah, it's like, it doesn't feel that good, does it? Especially when he can't talk and runs all over the place backwards and then runs to the helicopter. It's a weird situation. Antar is here, says Biden just released this 2 hours ago. I was a little taken aback because I work with signals in the military. We're told that we couldn't spy on American citizens. Go read the revocation, particularly Section 1. We all know that they've been spying for decades, but this makes it official. Let me see this one here. Friday night drop from the White House. What's this? National Security Memo on partial revocation of Policy Directive 28. The executive order signed on October 7th that enhances safeguards for U.S. intelligence that supersede the safeguards. The executive order establishes enhanced safeguards for recognition of signals intelligence activities. Let's see what this says. What is going on here? The memorandum. Yeah, so he's revoking another one, PPD 28, and I don't really know what that says. So I'd have to look up that. I'd have to look into that. But thank you for the link on this one. Antar says they're revoking the prior, and I don't know what the prior one was, so I'd have to look into that. But thank you, Antar, for flagging that for us. Very interesting that it's a Friday drop. You know, they drop the really bad stuff on Fridays because nobody's paying attention. Zach Nichols says, I wonder what the DOJ did to these people. New York City riot, torching NYPD vehicles and other things. Yeah, a lot of missing criminal charges from the DOJ. They focus on only the select few. Vientikis Prime is in the house. He says, just to make a point of psychology, it should be expected that if there were a large cabal of ultra-wealthy people, that they would want to eliminate as much of the world's population they felt they didn't need. They're no less subject to tribalism as we are, or any other animal. Part of that is about eliminating competition of ideas and genealogy. Sicking the Gestapo on pro-lifers, as well as things like promoting euthanasia like we're seeing in Canada. In fact, it wouldn't surprise me if one day, many centuries in the future, and not today, of course, some snake oil salesman came out with a grand scale and said, I've got a cure for what ails you. It turns out to be lethal. In fact, I think there was a case of people from South America doing that while claiming to be a religious organization. It's a good thing. Yeah, talking about sort of selling people euthanasia. You know, it's a weird thing that is happening. I saw a headline about that there was a death, I think. A young woman got approval, I think over there in Europe, in Sweden or something. Approval to die by euthanasia. You go talk to a couple of psychiatrists. Hey, I'd like to kill myself. What do you think? Yeah, great. Hey, I'd like to kill myself. What do you think? Great. Perfect. And they kill her. Okay. All right. I don't like the idea of giving up on somebody like that and just saying, yeah, call it. Your Butte says, remember what Obama said about Joe Biden. Don't underestimate the ability of Joe to F stuff up. Uncle Shane says, what's the point of prosecuting these anti-abortionists? Is this a scare tactic to tell everybody else who's anti-abortion to fall in line? How much can people take of this before they start getting upset? I think people are getting upset, Uncle Shane, certainly. And the point of this is to chill the speech. It's to stop other people from engaging in similar activity. It's to demoralize the opposition. It's to score political wins for your own base. We're prosecuting these people, right? The DOJ, the Biden people, all of the pro-abortioners, you're not getting these voicemails or phone calls or emails, right? But they're all, I'm sure, getting them. And Biden has a new talking point. Robute says, if the Secret Service job is to protect the president, shouldn't they escort Biden off the stage every time he finishes? I say this because Joe is so demented that he could fall off the stage. And Biden's biggest threat is Biden. It's a great point, Robute. It's a good point. Like the Secret Service should be there probably with like fall pads, bubble wrap, just sort of ready to throw one of the, like when a gymnast gets off the balance beam, you know how they throw the mats under them to catch them? Yeah, it might be something like that. So you can see that's a great idea from Robute. Vientika says, predicting the winner of this conflict is easy. It's going to be the banks, the billionaires, and the weapons manufacturers, just like every other conflict. Although this time, I think we might be adding Big Pharma to that list. The Veil says, apologies, a bit long, but, says Rob, I know I've been hard on agencies. The purpose is to show them how they behave and act. And if this process offends them, then I ask them to stand up and make changes in their agencies. I know there are good people in these agencies, but they have to find where they can take a stand and make a difference in their agencies to shift them out of being politicized so they become non-political. When it's said that you work at the pleasure of the president, well, I have to ask, is the agency or government position to be a weapon of the president? For political favors or political party favors? Or is the agency there to work within the laws of the Constitution? Because if it is for politics, then no, the agency does not work for the pleasure like some hooker on the streets. The agencies need to say, I work for the Constitution and the people and God in this order. Any government judiciary or DOJ that is politicized by any congressperson, political faction, or any president, and then is not an agency worthy of our Constitution, it needs to be abolished and reformed with safeguards to ensure that it can never be politicized by any political faction or elected or appointed official. That's a great, great comment from the Veil. The Veil, I agree. That's the importance of the Constitution. It's the anchor. It's the value statement. It's where it all starts. You start there. And the agencies that have expanded beyond those authorities, beyond that jurisdiction, are exceeding the scope and illegitimate, in my opinion. And I think you're exactly right about this. That's the importance of setting values in anything that you do. This is something we talk a lot about at my law firm. Safety, clarity, and hope. Those are our values. If you're acting in alignment with that, it doesn't matter what a lawyer does, what anybody does in our case. If I'm okay if people make mistakes. But if you align with the values, right, safety, clarity, and hope, then that can be your guidepost for measuring your behavior. Same thing here on this show. What are the values of this show? Accountability, transparency, and justice. When I think about what to talk about and what stories and the things that we dive into, I use those as my guidepost, as my framework. But here, we use the Constitution as our framework, as our guidepost, as our North Star, as our compass. And if we don't have a guidepost, then we have all sorts of really catastrophic problems because everybody thinks the Constitution should just be whatever they deem it to be. There is no compass. And they're acting extra constitutionally and I think illegitimately. And I agree with you completely. They need to be reformed. Another great comment from The Veil. Says, hey, Rob, maybe my history is wrong here, but this is what I learned many years ago. Many years ago, when I researched the formation of the government, I learned that many of them were never supposed to be permanent. They're supposed to be temporary and then shut down and reassigned to other departments. My understanding could be wrong, but as we have lifers now in society and personnel are more concerned about their golden parachute, those are superseding the duties to our nation. Yeah, we have all of these elected politicians. And then honestly, we have a bunch of unelected politicians as well who are leading us in all of these different departments. Like, did you ever think that Miguel Cardona was going to tell you parents that you were terrorists for going to your school events? Of course not. But he's unelected, he's appointed, and he did. Former says, I don't believe law enforcement officers could legally refuse to identify themselves on request. Not sure on the legality of the refusal, but I would like to look at their policies and procedures in order to see. Really sad to see what's happening. It looks like the slow motion suicide of law enforcement in United States. Robute says the nuclear escalation is just fear-mongering propaganda by the mainstream media. It's done to get views. This is Joseph Goebbels' propaganda justifying martial law on the ground. Vienticus says it's okay that Biden doesn't know math. 11 out of 10 people have trouble with math. It is true. It's hard. But Vienticus wrote a book about it. Here, Martin says it's 279 miles from the Ukrainian border to Moscow. The U.S. ballistic nuclear missiles allegedly in Ukraine travel 250 miles a minute. Biden is an existential crisis for the United States. That is true. Martin also says, leaving these 50 coins for a tip for Eric's house. I didn't know what the conversion is, so have fun with the math. I know. I was keeping a running spreadsheet of all of everything, and I'm going to have to do it after the fact because it's all over the place. I'm going to do it tonight and tomorrow. Here we've got Radice says, I may have to grift Eric's house on Racket's stream to bankrupt Robert. Oh, gosh. Yeah, he gets some pretty serious donos and views over there, so I might be broke after that. Thank you, Radice. Former says, I guess that you're starting to like the big boy nickname. Enjoy it. You earned it. It's Jake from Oxford. He says, hey, are you going to cover any of the Waukesha Christmas parade trial? Probably not. The defendant is representing himself. Allow me to give you an accurate account of the first week. Imagine a train wreck that you cannot look away from. I've watched some clips of it. I may comment on some clips of it. It's a train wreck. I mean, there's not much to talk about other than it's a train wreck. At the same time, the trains crash into each other. A plane falls out of the sky and crashes into the trains. Ironically, at the exact same place and time of the triple crash, a volcano erupts from the ground, swallows everything in fiery lava, and it's pretty much exactly like that. Yeah. I can see that. And probably also a satellite falls out of the sky on top of it before it goes into the volcano. It's also, I mean, it's that bad. It's pretty bad. He took his clothes off. He's running all over the place. I mean, I don't think he's a well person. And they're having a very difficult time getting this under control. So maybe we will talk about it. It says, if you're donating to Eric's house, please do not donate through YouTube. They screwed Nick Rekieta and banned him. He's back now. He got banned because he got flagged by horrible people. I believe Nick got like 20 ethics complaint by those people. He's back, Robute. That's good news. I saw him on earlier today. Hunter's crack dealer says Joe Biden is running because he found out Hunter owes me a ton of money. Oh, his crack dealer's here. So I showed up to collect. Now he's running away. None of the Bidens want to pay, so they're all just running. Couple came in from Vientikis. Says, please don't touch anything. And nuclear bomb of the cat. Yeah, there you go. Please don't. There's the cat. Here's the cat. That's the Joe Biden cat. There it is. Ray K says, laughing my ass off. Good job, Paul. Paul me know with the meme smiths. Jeremy's here says, hey, Rob, having spent 28 years of my life in the military, thank you for your service, and 10 years as a senior leader, I spent a lot of time around many incredibly intelligent, competent, and reasonable leaders. With a topic as serious as WMDs, I have full faith in our military leaders to keep our intelligence collection capabilities working overtime to watch for signs of preparation by Russia to use those weapons. I believe they would put out a statement if they saw anything of the concern, as they did when we saw preparations for the Ukraine invasion. It is very unfortunate when our political leaders aren't careful with what they say. Hopefully, as you said, most people won't take it seriously. Someone who can't count to 3. I think so. It's like, if Joe Biden was a serious person who said serious things, well, then you would take him seriously. But he can't even speak, so what do you care? What do all the coins mean that I actually had on my account? I just threw them in your tip jar. Hopefully they mean money. Yeah, they are actually money. They are money. So thank you, Ray K. I don't know how much was in there, but yeah, there's certainly money in there. They're dollars. I think it's 10 coins to $1, if I'm not mistaken. I think it's 10 coins to $1. So thank you, Ray K. Anti-fragile old cat lady says, don't forget to shout out the youngest girly if you haven't already. You're right, Anti-fragile. Thank you for reminding me. And shout out to the youngest girly out there. It's Friday. Hopefully the youngest girly's having an amazing day at the 3 girlies household. And we haven't seen the 3 girlies. Shout out to Heather as well. But hopefully they're having an amazing Friday over there. And thank you for the reminder, Anti-fragile. Almost forgot. Here from Joe B. Juan Kenobi. Joe B. Juan Kenobi. And it's Joe Biden upside down. You see that right there? It's Joe B. Juan Kenobi. Rob, you must have missed Biden's new executive order. That makes 3 equals 2. Wow, yeah. Yeah, I guess you can do that by executive order. Constitution doesn't matter. Supreme Court doesn't matter. Statutes, whatever, none of it matters. Let's go back to some more comments. And we've got some more. We've got Rye T's in the house. Says, 3 points of mine. 1, nobody has the right to impede somebody else from legally going about their day and conducting their lawful business. Blocking people from entering a clinic or using its services is not the correct thing to do. Whether somebody else is conducting themselves morally or not is irrelevant. Nobody has the right to stop somebody else from going about their lawful business. I think that's a good point there. The question, and I even think the people who were at the clinic agree with you. Right. I think even in the indictment, they were acknowledging that what they were doing was not legal and they were going to get arrested. I think the issue that people have with this is that there are double standards in the law, whereas they will actually get prosecuted when they cross that little line, whereas others will not, for example, for firebombing protests or for firebomb protests of other clinics. But I think your point is well taken regardless. I think that had they not actually blocked in any way, and this is all alleged, right? The government is saying they blocked them. Who knows what that actually means, right? I've seen officers and cops make up all sorts of crap. So I don't necessarily believe that, but as a general rule, I agree with you. 2, everybody has the right to free speech. Whether their message is agreeable, disagreeable, wonderful, or terrible, speech must be protected for all those who wish to have their voice heard. And number 3, it's disgusting that the FBI raided these people, yet left-wing activists concealed their identities, used tools to destroy buildings, used weapons to take lives, and used their ill-gotten power to encroach on the rights of others, all without prosecution or even investigation. The double standards needs to be challenged and eradicated as it's already going too far, and I can only see it getting worse. Great comment from Rye T. Thank you for that, Rye. Very astute observations. I think you're on it. Vienticus says, to add to what former LEO was talking about, my father used to drag race. One year, all these houses were built by the local drag track. All these people moved in during the winter, and during the summer when racing started again, they immediately got together and tried to have the track shut down. Hey, I like to go fast too. You know, our law firm helps a ton of people with criminal traffic violations. Arizona has criminal speeding, we've got reckless driving, we've got aggressive driving, we have racing, exhibition of speed, we have all these crimes. It's a lot. Big money. And they charge many of these as class 1 misdemeanors, which is the same category as a DUI. Racing, same category as a DUI. Martin says, suicide not only legal in Europe, it's a tourist industry. That's where the brilliant Nora Vincent went to end herself after 15 years of not being able to cope with her experience dressing like a man. Okay, from Martin. The one I saw was a gal had been near an explosion, a terrorist bomb, I forget what it was, and then she had PTSD from it, and she just, was so wrecked in PTSD from that she wanted to die. It's like, okay. Anti-Fragile says Secret Service should at least make sure Biden has his pants on correctly. At bare minimum, can somebody just look and just say, Joe? Unless they're mocking us, unless they're just joking with us. Martin says, not for the pleasure of the president, but at the pleasure of the president. It does not mean the same thing as pleasure you'd get from a night walker or from a chocolate shake. It just means you can fire you at any time for any reason. From Martin. Vientica says, people make mistakes. That's not the problem. The problem is when people try to cover up those mistakes because it takes them longer to fix the mistake. Although idiots promote covering up mistakes by expecting others not to be perfect. From Vienticus. Facts Matter says, a reminder for the Spidey says, I don't always threaten the West with nuclear war, but when I do, I use weapons made with uranium purchased from Hillary Clinton. The most interesting nuclear Putin in the world using uranium from Hillary. Good to see you, Facts Matter. Rai T says, that article detailing all the negative effects of a nuclear attack that would have on the West is trying to whip people up into a frenzy. The UK media has a habit of reporting on, quote, fuel shortages when there aren't any, thus sparking a panic buying at the stations leading to fuel shortages. This is the same thing on a much grander, more sinister scale. I agree with you, Rai T. I think that, as I said this on our members-only morning walk and talk this morning, that if there is one hint of radiation, everybody's going to freak out. We're all going to have to lock down. Everybody's going to have to censor everything. You can't talk about this, that, or the other. We're all going to die, right? If there's one stinking hint of radiation, even if it's not reality. Here, V says 100 coins is $1, and Martin says 10 coins is $1. I think it's 10 to 1, I think. Rai T says, the worst thing about Fridays for me? I'll know I'll have to wait another 3 sleeps before being able to tune in again. Oh, Rai T, I know. It's hard. I miss doing the shows on the weekends, but it's a lot of work to do the show, and I do have to attend to other things, unfortunately. Ray KOK says, what the heck? I gave like $3. Yeah, you did, baby. Thank you. Loading us up over here. Rai T says, what is exhibition of speed? That's like if you rev your engine, like say you're at a red light and or if you squeal your tires, right? You burn them out, like at a Old Town Avenue or 5th Street or whatever it is you have in your city. That's exhibition of speed. You're exhibiting your speed. This one came in from former LEO. That looks fun. That looks fun. Those are fun. Those are fun little things to go to. I'm not a huge car guy in general, but they're fun, man. And you get behind some of those vehicles, you can really, really move. Ray K says, the young lady that wanted to die when 17, when the bomb went off, in like 23 when they killed her, it's a shame that it's not enough time to even heal. Yeah. 17 to 23. So yeah. So about 6 years. Things take time and people heal. And it's just like, Okay, we're done. We're just done. Ugh. It's kind of a bummer. But all right, my friends, I think that's about it for us for the day. We're going to do one final refresh before we wrap it up there. Former LEO says, that's my race car. Holy moly, that's pretty cool. I didn't know that. Here, this is Formers. Says, that's my race car. Oh my goodness. Yes, Former. I think I see that. Yes, I can see that, former LEO, because I know a little bit more about you. I can see that now. That's pretty cool. That is your car. That's pretty fun. Yeah. Yeah, I've thought about that. I thought about so our law firm does a lot of traffic stuff. We've sponsored some racing stuff. We've sponsored some events. My business partner have an idea where we got these like little kit cars. We were going to buy a kit car with R&R Law Group on it and stuff. They're fun. It's a lot of fun. It's probably, a little dangerous for somebody like me, but it looks awesome for you. Ray K says, the young lady that wanted to die was 17. Former LEO says, that's my race car. That's a good way to wrap it up for the day. I think we'll do one final refresh. Very cool. Thank you for sharing that. And Martin says, in California, that's called exhibitionist speed over in California. Yeah, we get a lot of those here. And there's a new racing task force in Arizona. And so we're helping a bunch of people with that stuff. And it's like, come on, guys. Are you serious? All of these are racing cases, all class 1 misdemeanors. You really want to get all these kids with permanent criminal records? Give us a break. All right. And so we had Ray K, OK, and others, 198 coins on locals as well. Thank you to everybody who is supporting Eric's House. We're now up to $3.2 thousand that's been raised over for Eric's House. And I'm grateful for everybody who was able to be a part of the show and who is supporting those efforts. Thank you to our friends over at watchingthewatchers.locals.com. Shout outs in order for Zach Nichols, John McGarvey. Oh, we had some donos come in over on locals. Let's get these here. John McGarvey says, Rob, I just love how you treat your brother. This hits me personally. Keep it up, bro. Well, thanks, John. Yeah, look, I appreciate you back, John. Thank you for that. John Allen said, Rob, here's some money. Never show Nadler again, please. I can't make any promises on that, man. He's waddling all over the place. He's waddling all over Congress. It's a lot. Savvy Sue says, I got nothing. I was late, but happy Friday dono for Savvy Sue. All of these are going over to Eric's House. I'm matching all of the donos to Eric's House. Everything over the last 2 weeks up until tomorrow is being matched and donated to Eric's House, all of it. So thank you, Savvy Sue. I'll give you an update on what the numbers look like very likely tomorrow or maybe on Monday. I'll know what the final numbers are. But thank you to the locals community. You see where that is, watchingthewatchers.locals.com. We do morning walk and talk. So if you're looking for a little bit extra content, we do morning sort of walk monologues, talk about some of the stories that we don't get to here. Join up either on YouTube or on locals to get some of those videos, and we'll have one coming out tomorrow. Probably some more updates on the Eric's House stuff tomorrow. Of course, check out the ericshouse.org annual fundraiser. Links are in the description below. We're scheduled for a big event tomorrow all day. I'm going to be hosting it 12 to 4 p.m. Arizona time, which is Mountain. And so come check that out. I am also a lawyer at the R&R Law Group located in Scottsdale, Arizona. And so if you happen to know anybody who was charged with a crime and they need good legal representation so that they don't become convicted of a crime, that's what my team does. R&R Law Group, free case evaluations. We have an awesome team of lawyers, people, everybody's just incredible. We just finished some quarterly reviews. We've got big plans for Q4 and for 2023, and it involves helping more good people find safety, clarity, and hope. 480-787-0394, online at rrlawaz.com to schedule an appointment. And we do appreciate your referrals. They really do keep us busy. We're busy. We're having a lot of fun doing our life's work. And lastly, my friends, thank you to the mods who keep the fort modded down and nice and orderly so we can attend to our business. Shout outs to Vienticus Prime, K-Bean, Just Kyle's in the house, Lean's over there. We've got Playin' Hookie who came over here along with Ronnie Cole, and shout out to Zulu who's in the house. I appreciate everybody who is keeping things nice and modded for us. Shout out to our Spotlight supporters. These are individuals who support the show with a little extra monetary love, and so we like to share some screen real estate with them. Thank you to Chris Romero, David B3, Dr. EMB in the house, along with John over at qsimple.com. If you haven't been to that website, you probably should go check it out, like right now. And so that, my friends, is it for us. We are going to leave it there. I want to thank everybody who was a part of the show. It's Friday. We've got some serious recovery, weekend business to attend to. Unplugging from politics, connecting with friends and family, going to ericshouse.org and joining the annual event, which is taking place all day tomorrow, and donating whatever you can part with so that I go broke over the weekend. But I do hope you have an amazing weekend, my friends, and you are able to unplug, get outside, get some fresh air, get some vitamin D, get some sunshine, and recharge those batteries, because next week we are going to be right here. And I need your help so that together we can shine that big, beautiful spotlight of accountability and transparency down upon our system with the hope of finding justice. Have a tremendous weekend, my friends. I'll see you right back here on Monday. Bye-bye.